Hi, thanks very much, everybody, and welcome to this afternoon. Thanks for coming along. My name is Dr. Mary-Ann Freer, and I am a psychiatrist. And today we're going to be doing a session on young people mental health as relating to the general practitioner. So I have a number of slides which we'll start to share in a minute, which will go through basically the format of today, so you can know what to expect. So Gillian, thanks for the introduction, and Gillian's going to be around to help us if we have any IT problems. So thanks for that, Gillian. So let me begin to share screen. And hopefully you can see the screen. Yeah, we're getting a yes. So, okay, so today we're going to be looking at teenage patients with mental health problems in the GP consultation. And that is my name with my email there. And you're very, very welcome, most welcome to get in touch with me after the session with any further questions you might have. And my slides are not moving on. Oh, there we go. Okay, so in terms of the context of the session, I hardly need to tell you about this. All of us are facing a huge increase in mental illness post-pandemic, peri-pandemic, wherever we are with the pandemic at the moment. 10 to 20% increase in mental illness with COVID, and I know that you'll be seeing a lot of those people. Young people have been particularly affected. Depression, anxiety, eating disorders, huge increase of eating disorders in COVID, alcohol, substance dependency, abuse, loneliness, and we're still all picking up the pieces which really have been long-term, hard-hitting and quite silent and insidious. You'll all be experiencing increased wait times to be seen by specialists, by CAMHS, and obviously you'll also be seeing more patients, I think, with mental illness in primary care. That's what GPs are saying. And just as an indicator of that need, there has been a huge increase in prescribing of antidepressants by general practitioners as a response, really, to this massive demand and the lack of services available. So that scenario may be familiar to you. It may not be, but that's the context for today's session. What we're going to be doing is really helping you to further improve your ability to offer simple evidence-based assistance to young people, patients with a mental illness, but that's within your professional role and schedules. And we will also be covering risk as well. The really important thing here is about not asking anybody to be a psychiatrist or a CPN or a counsellor, actually about people working in a generous role, open access, where people are coming to see you and you're trying obviously your hardest to offer some form of help whilst people are waiting or actually don't get taken on by a specialist. That's the context. People always say, how old, what age does this session relate to? And we go from 11 years upwards because there is something about the maturity of the young person we need to be able to do the work we're going to be covering today. So it is really teenagers, not the real youngsters. In terms of prescribing, you know already your hands are tied with prescribing with teenagers with mental illness, but we will be signposting to some resources, and we aren't going to be covering safeguarding. What we're going to be doing is this. So a few introductions we're doing now. You're going to have a little bit of time working in breakout rooms where you can meet some of your colleagues, which is always nice, and just think of the clinical questions you personally might have arising, and we're going to put those in the chat box so I can have a look at them and make sure we're on track and the training can help. So we'll be doing that. We're going to then be doing a bit of constructed casework. We will have a mini break, just a few minutes to get you off screen and give you some time away from the computer, get back into some casework, and then we will finish with a chance for you to ask your own questions relating to any difficulty you might have, which we can cover. We will be closing at 4 on the dot. So that's basically what we're going to be doing. Let me just quickly introduce myself. I've worked for the Charlie Waller Memorial Trust, who've actually sponsored me to be here today for the last 14 years or so. I'm a psychiatrist by background, but I'm very portfolio. From 1996, I had a lectureship in primary care at Newcastle upon Tyne University in the northeast England, and I've been a GP educator as well, working with GP graduates around the mental health consultation for probably 20 years. And my special interest is this area which is called primary care mental health, which is how people present to you in an open access public health system, and how a brief intervention, can be of great assistance. Just to say a little bit more about myself, actually that's where I'm located, up in the right hand corner, which some of you may recognise as the Northwest Highlands, where I'm in Torridon. In terms of the kind of training work I've done, it's been all over. So we've worked in Scotland, England, Wales, Northern Ireland and Era, as well as Canada. Been doing this some years now, and worked with the RCGP as today. I've done a lot of work with GP training schemes, so you're welcome to get in touch with me about that actually, and also a lot of work in the undergraduate area in terms of general practice mental health training. So that's a little bit about me. Just to quickly, won't say more about this, you'll get the slides afterwards. The Charlie Waller, thank you very much for allowing me to be here today. Charity set up by the Waller family in the name of Charlie, their son. And Charlie very sadly, tragically took his own life when he was a young man. Family didn't know anything about it, can you imagine? And just awful. And they set up a charity in his name, and they're very, very keen, particularly on supporting GPs, because they know just how hard your job is, particularly the ones who actually do go on to very sadly take their own lives. So that's a bit about us. Look us up if you have an interest. And just to say, not to use the materials. If you want to, just get in touch and I'm sure we can help. Online etiquette, I'm not going to say much more about that. You'll know about all that stuff. If you can use participant signs like hands up, that's great. Cameras on, I said if possible, but it's really completely up to you. Get in touch with Gillian if you've got Wi-Fi problems, and just remember, in breakout rooms, always respect patient and professional anonymity, and put comments in the chats, but in bullet points, so we don't have to spend a lot of time writing. Just to say also, if you want to do further CPD on this area after the session, if you go online to that URL, there's a 10-minute video which I've done, which it actually is probably 12 minutes, and it goes through quite a lot of what we've done today, and you're very welcome also to use that as a training resource with your practice and your practice teams and any trainees, etc. So that might be of use to you. So without more ado, what we want to do is for you to just think a little bit about the young people with mental illness you have seen or have suspected to have had problems, and your clinical questions arising out of that. Really, why do you come to this training session? What would you like to know and go away with, which would be of help for you? So we're going to put you into breakout rooms. At the moment, we've got 49 of you. So we're going to try breakout rooms, Gillian, of 5 people, so that you can get a chance to have a chat. You're going to have 10 minutes at this point. Really, this is for you to think about any youngsters you've seen, introduce yourself, and any youngsters you've seen who may have or definitely did have a mental illness, and what did you need to know? What was your questions that you needed to know out of that? If you want to, when you come back out of that time, if you could write up any comments in or any questions in the chat feature during the session, I will be looking at that and pick up on any points and make sure we address them. If we're not going to address them, I'll sort of be able to hopefully tell you where you might be able to get some help to understand that further. So hopefully that is all clear. I'm going to stop sharing slides at this point and say, Gillian, are you there? Yes, she is. Hello, Gillian. Hi. Could you put everybody into groups of 5? I think if the session can be 10 minutes, but with 1 minute count down. So it is actually 10 minutes, not 11 minutes. That would be perfect. Thank you. Okay. And if there are any problems, myself and Gillian will be here in the main room. So just come back to us. Or if you finish early, just come back. And yeah, so.
Sorry, just one moment.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it takes a little while to get
there
it all sorted. Perfect. See you soon.
Someone else joining, that's good.
Gillian, I'm just going to go off camera because I have a bit of an eye problem. I'll leave the microphone on, but I'll come back in about 5 minutes time.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank
bye.
You.
Okay, great. Welcome back, everybody. And hopefully you found that interesting. I wonder if you might like to, 1 or 2 people might like to put any clinical questions arising in the chat box now. And then I will look at those and come back to them in terms of the training. So anything which you feel you need to know from your casework, if you could write it in the chat, and then I will look at that as we go through a bit later on and come back to you on that. So, okay, so people have had a chance to think a little bit about the clinical work they're doing at the moment with young people with mental illness. So what I'm going to do now is go through a little bit of a case. Now, I think that you have had circulated to you in advance a Word document with the case of Zoe. So if you have, if you might find that document and open it up on your computers independently, it's the only way I can kind of think of doing this, and just have a refresh, a little reminder about Zoe. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to kind of really think a little bit about Zoe and present 1 or 2 ways, practical ways, which might be of use to you with a patient like Zoe. And then we'll have a chance to ask any questions from it. So while you're doing that, I'm just going to have a quick look in the chat box, and you might like to do it as well, so that you can see what people are dealing with. So we've got a comment about a 14-year-old girl being more isolated, not saying much, less engaging, minimum eye contact, not keen to speak to GP, says basically nothing's going on, doing okay in school, became more and more non-verbal, mute, staying in her room all day, playing video games. She wouldn't engage, and after seeing me once, didn't come back. Yeah, and it's, you know, this is quite worrying, isn't it? Not keen to initiate anything medication-wise. You can't. You have no information. Referred to CAMHS with detailed history and on the wait list. So I'm dying to know how long she's waited to be seen. So yeah, I mean, that scenario is a pretty common scenario, particularly post-COVID. And, you know, of course, I've got, like yourselves, I've got loads of alarm bells ringing about her. And the questions are, is this within the range of normal? Is it within normal teenage behavior? Or actually, does she have a mental illness going on? What's going on in that room? What's going on in her head? But how do we engage with her is, of course, the number one issue, because, yeah, will she go and see CAMHS when that referral comes through? I don't know. So yeah, hopefully we will be able to suggest one or two things which humbly might be able to help here, but definitely let's come back to her at the end of the session. We've got a, okay, I think this may be, is this a different patient? I think it may be, but the next case down, complete mutism, not engaging, not being able to identify any abuse triggering, social anxiety, yeah, post-pandemic, ASD, very concerned about abuse, escalated to CAMHS as urgent and on urgent wait list. Tried maintaining 2 weekly contact with dad, who's very supportive and trying his best. Wow, yeah, how hard is this? How hard for you, and how hard for the young people and their families? Again, serious stuff. We'll see what little offerings, humble offerings we can offer there. Then we've got a few more. Very hard to do much in that age with medication unsupported. Yeah. About engagement, luckily supportive parents. Any advice? So yes, we hopefully are going to cover parents and engagement. Anything we can do prior to CAMHS? Yes. Wondering if there are any tips about dealing with situations where patients stay concerned. Parents. Eating? Yes, hopefully we can cover. We are going to make a reference to eating disorders, families for sure. Engagement, yeah. Okay, so I'm getting the picture, and yeah, it's a real tough call. So thank you for that, and we will definitely come back with any other comments you might like to put at the end of the session. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to go through some slides of a patient, a young woman who's called Zoe, and who's having a few struggles with life. You've seen her Word document, so just refresh yourself with that case as we go through. There was an opportunity to have breakout rooms in this, but I think we're probably not going to do that. So I'm basically going to present these quite didactically, but what I would say is, please, can you just put any questions you might have in the chat as we go through, and there'll be an opportunity before I break also to ask any questions live. So let me see if I can get this to go onto slideshow. And are we going to do it? Yes, we are. Okay, so zipping on. Okay, so we have Zoe, and as I say, I'm just going to go through this. You come back to me at the end, please do. The way I think, as I'm sure you think as a clinician, is I try to keep it simple. What is the problem? What decisions do we make? Of course, it's not simple at all. What is the problem? So we're looking at differential diagnosis, and then what decisions do we make? Simple and realistic. So, you know, I was so I'm so grateful really for that patient we heard about in the chat, who is fortunate enough for their wonderful GP to be saying, I'm going to see you every 2 weeks. But of course, a lot of our patients, we can't offer that to in general practice, and it's not realistic. And of course, for our patients and their families, waiting and being on an urgent CAMHS wait list is also not realistic to the problem that we have. So we have to think about what's realistic. And what we can do, what we can contribute. Sometimes we can't contribute, sometimes somebody can't pick up help, but there's probably more around than one might think. So, if you were going to be by yourself, you're looking at what are the possible problems for Zoe, and there would be a whole list of problems, I'm sure, and what action would you take? And your problem list might be, for Zoe's case, it might be family divorce, it might be second family relationships, it might be school truancy, it might be arguments in the family, it might be social isolation. You might have put on your problem list depression, anxiety. You might have put query alcohol. You might have put substance abuse. You could have put concerns about safeguarding. There could be a massive list there. In terms of actions, I'm sure, very much sure, that that you will be trying to, what we call, hold Zoe. You might make a referral, you might consider antidepressants, you might not. You will, I know, be trying to do your best and work with the family, and it's a really tough call. So let's just have a little think about what the problem is. You've already said in your cases you presented in the chat, it's all about engagement. And that's what it is. Just let's throw ourselves back to being youngsters and going to see the GP, and how terrifying that is. And then if you actually do have a mental illness, you don't have the words to put this, you can't describe or explain it. It is really, really tough. So engagement actually is completely everything. So what I've flagged up here is just the DSM-5 criteria for a major depression, just as a reminder. Now, 2 reasons really. It's because actually this does guide any prescribing you might want to do. So it is kind of the basis, the rationale for any prescribing of antidepressants. And it is also a symptom count. It's how many of those symptoms over the 2-week period. This is a particular issue with young people, teenagers, because the actual nature, the neurodevelopment of a young person is mood swings, ups and downs. And a youngster, as we know, can feel extreme emotion, very, very, very sad, on the bottom, and yet 10 minutes later be absolutely fine. So it is important just to remember about DSM-5 in terms of your prescribing, but also because actually to the youngster, this list does not make a lot of sense. And we did some work with young people in northeast of England, and they were like, you're just trying to make us into psychiatric cases. This does not make sense to us at all. So then we actually began to engage young people through a person-centered problem summary. Now, some of you may well be familiar with the 5-area framework, which was developed in Glasgow by Dr. Chris Williams. And, it's come from Scotland, and it is a way to pull together, time efficiently, a person-centered problem summary, which actually a young person and their family can begin to engage and understand about why they're actually feeling this way, in order to actually work out what to do next. So I'm at this point going to go very swiftly, first of all, to explain the framework. Then I'm going to explain how it can be used in the clinical consultation in general practice. And then I'm going to give you an example with our case, Zoe. So if you just bear with me. So if we look at that, it's called 5 areas because there's 5 boxes: life situation, thinking, emotions, physical symptoms, and behaviors. And this is actually the basis of CBT. So it's important to understand if you're going to make that referral, and indeed with adults as well. So basically it goes like this. A life situation happens, an event, stressor, we call, say, in psychiatry. This changes a young person's thinking. It makes them think negatively. And so it's that extreme thinking, it's black and white thinking, it's catastrophizing, it's I can't do this, I hate myself, I am a horrible person. Those sorts of thoughts. Something happens in your life, it makes you think negatively. And then we go down to the feeling box down here. Understandably, it makes you feel negative. So it makes you feel very sad, or it makes you feel angry, or it makes you feel anxious. This then goes on. We zip over now to the physical symptoms box, and something happens. It makes you think negatively, it makes you feel negatively, and it brings out physical symptoms. Now, in Zoe's case, it's sore throats. This is your psychosomaticization, which does begin in teenage years. Then we go on from that to the final box, which is that something stressful happens in your life. It makes you think negatively. It goes on to affect your feelings. It brings out physical symptoms, and it affects your behavior. And often our young people show us their mental illness through their behavior. And that is the go inwards behavior, which we've seen in the case chat comments. That social isolation, dropping friends, not going to school, not talking to people. That's extreme inwards, or the outwards behavior, which is the alcohol, substances, bad behavior, out of control, nicking, stealing, not going to school, etc. So this is a way of pulling together a view of why that young person might, it's just a suggestion, might feel the way they are, so that we can actually then move on to think about how to get out of this place whilst you're waiting for CAMHS. So, okay, so that's it in a nutshell. I'm going to show you Zoe's in a minute, and I just want you to hang fire here, because I do suspect everybody's going, oh, I couldn't do that, it would take too long in my consultation. You can do it in a consultation. It does take a bit of practice, to be honest. However, what I've used it is in the back of my head. I have it as a framework and to kind of guide my consultation, you know, when the information's coming in thick and fast, but you can use it to try and work out this person-centered approach. You don't need to actually write it down, but you can do it in bullet points. The purists, by the way, share this with the young person because it's the young person's problem. So though we don't want them to feel like this, in the end, it's their life. So it's about sharing it. But let's come back to that one about any reservations you might have about this or not. Let me just show you now I'm going to have to, sorry, just bear with me. I am going to stop sharing, and I'm going to share screen again, and here we go. Yes, I'm going to show you the completed version of Chloe's. Can you see? I hope you can see that well enough. Let me just kind of see how much I can go down here. Yeah. I'll just start off, I'll start off showing you a bit of it, okay, so that you can get an idea. So in terms of Zoe, if we think about what you've read in the case, her stress of life event, she's got some current ones going on a daily basis. She has big family arguments with her mother and her stepfather every day. She's missing school every day. These are everyday current life stressors. This is in the background of a divorce, COVID lockdown, and a mum's new partner moving in. In terms of her thoughts, each day she hates herself, she hates life, she hates family, she thinks she can't do schoolwork, and she thinks she's too fat. In terms of feelings, each day she cries, and in terms of physical symptoms, she has sore throats, insomnia, weight loss, and tiredness. And in terms of behaviours, sorry, we can't quite see that. You know, she's dropping social contact, and she's dropping healthy sporting exercises. So overall, what we do is say to Zoe, well, Zoe, I don't know if this makes sense, but try it out and see what you think. It just sounds like at the moment there's a lot of stress around, a lot of family arguments and problems with school. And I know gosh, you've been through a family divorce and got new family arrangements. It's all a really tall order. And, you know, understandably, maybe that's made you think really negatively about yourself and ability to do stuff and how you look, and that's made you feel a bit down and brought back your sore throats, and overall just made you want to withdraw a bit from life. Now, you know, Zoe might like that or she might not like that, but it's a way to think about the problem. So that's an offering. It's a way. You don't need to use any of these particularly in a consultation. It might be of help, it might not be, but it's a way of thinking about what's going on. So if you just hang on for a moment, I'm just going to go back to my slides, and then we'll carry on through the rest and give you a chance to ask questions. Here we are. Okay, so this is we've talked about what is the problem, and we've talked about the issue about engaging with a young person, and put forward a way of thinking about the 5 areas framework as a way to engage with a young person in a way which makes sense to them. You might do it with them, you might not, but it's a way for you to think about it anyway. So then we need to think about some management options. So I'm going to whiz through some stuff now and see what you think. In terms of prescribing for teenage antidepressants, your hands are tied, as you've already said in your chat comments. So here's a nice guidance. And if we look down here, you have got sertraline on there, and then they did add in, didn't they? Where is it? They did add in these additional, sorry, it's fluoxetine, and then they've added in the sertraline and the citalopram a bit later on, actually, after this nice guidance was developed. However, as he's saying, first of all, are they justified? Antidepressants don't work for social misery. The evidence base is they have to be a major depressive episode, and that is a multi-system condition with a number of symptoms across a number of systems. So actually, they do not work for social misery, and they do not work for sadness. And often we do see them prescribed for both of those things. Again, because we just want to help, and also because sometimes there's no other help available. So that's the first thing. Then I think we always have to think about, would the youngster take the antidepressants correctly for the required length of time? And we know that concordance rate for all people, and particularly for teenagers, is very, very, very low. And you know, antidepressants, you have to take them correctly for 6 months plus 3 months, and that is a really big, tough call. I mean, I can't even take antibiotics properly, let alone something like that. So that's another question. You've got to remember the side effect profile of antidepressants. Will Zoe keep on taking them when she gets side effects? And there is a high side effect profile, so that's another downer on it. If you read the NICE guidance, it says that a youngster should be getting psychosocial support and CBT. Are they getting it, or are they just on the CAMHS wait list? What's happening there? And actually, is it something she wants? And would she engage with this form of help? So it's quite difficult. So if we carry on with our thinking about Zoe, you actually decide, well, you're not, you actually think she's got a major depressive episode. You're not going to prescribe because you're not happy about doing that. So you refer to CAMHS. And 3 months later, Zoe's mum returns saying, they haven't been seen by CAMHS. Help is needed urgently. Zoe actually says, I'm really struggling. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to make this go away and how to feel better. And then she says, I'm not going to go to CAMHS anyway, because I'm just not going to do the traveling, and I'm not going to talk to a strange adult. I quite like you, GP, because GPs are brilliant. So that, again, that may be a familiar scenario to you. Just bear in mind that actually CAMHS is not necessarily the answer. If you look at the statistics, CAMHS has a 30% DNA rate for the first consultation. So, after all that wait, then 1 in 3 don't go. And then the actual contact time is actually usually 1 session. And again, the youngster votes with feet and doesn't go again. So we have to think in a slightly different way. So what I'm going to present now is, I'm sure what you do anyway, but it may be just framing it in a slightly different evidence-based way, or it may just give that reassurance that you're doing fantastically. So the principles we're going to talk about, based on generalism, not asking anybody to be a psychiatrist or specialist. Look at general practice. It's an open access system. So this youngster will come back to you if they've engaged with you, and their mother, their parents will bring them back while they're on that waiting list, as you know. And you're looking at something which can have some value, but it's brief consultations infrequently, and it has to be realistic to your time. So we've already said that engagement is everything, but most families are trying to help their youngster in the way they can. I know families are also the problem, but most people are trying to help. So as well as building rapport, working and educating parents and helping the family to help that youngster is really quite critical, and quite a lot can be done in 1 brief consultation. But overall, just go back to your psychiatry. We're looking to reduce stressors realistically, and also build that psychosocial support realistically, whilst that youngster's waiting to be seen by CAMHS, or perhaps they never will ever get to CAMHS anyway. So that's kind of the principles of what we're looking for. And just to sort of set this out, basically the evidence base is, in general practice, not psychiatry, general practice, is health promotion you're doing. So, it isn't if you've got the counselling qualifications, fantastic, and that's just so good. But otherwise, we're looking at health promotion activities, we're looking at CBT self-care, and we're looking at advice and referral. That is what is appropriate within the general practice portfolio. And of course, the realism is really important, particularly in these days, about how we can do this in a brief consultation where we may not see the youngster again. So we kind of put forward this approach, which is 1 action in 1 minute in 1 consultation. These are the evidence-based interventions which can be done relatively simply. They have a start, they have a finish. You know that you've done the best you can possibly do. You've offered some help, and you'll be quite surprised actually how many people can take this forward. Of course, some can't. So if I go through this quickly, first of all, in the first consultation, maybe if you can, and if the parents are able to, go for the family. About if we can engage the family, they're on call 24/7. They're the ones who are dealing with it, believe me. And if we can help that family to help that youngster, then we're doing great. And we'll come on to that in a minute. The next thing is to try and chip away at these stressors in a tiny little way, which actually can have a big impact, and engage that youngster. And we'll be talking about problem solving and sketching in a minute. Then we want to go on from that success and that beginning of confidence and engagement, to get the youngsters to engage with other people and to begin to build up some psychosocial supports, which hopefully will keep them going while they're waiting to be seen by the specialists, and we'll be looking at that. So, as I say, you will be getting these slides because there's a lot of URLs in them. So in your own time, you could look through these URLs and save the ones you like to your clinical systems and then start to begin to use them. So first things is family. We have MindEd. Now MindEd is pretty brilliant, and it has lots and lots of top tips, advice, information, carers, parents. They have telephone support lines. They are great. So they've had a huge amount of money put into them, and they are very, very reputable. So MindEd for families, you know, let's not be patronizing. All of this stuff can be found if you Google it. So there's not a danger in this. This is a reputable website, and you know, I would engage the family in the consultation and say, look, maybe open up that site here and there, and then say, well, you know, perhaps get onto that on your smartphone, save it as favorite, see what you think, and get back to me on that. Next one is Young Minds. It's one of the go-to resources because they are so reliable and well funded, which means they're doing some great work. So if you don't use Young Minds already, that's such one to save. It's great for the young people, but also for family members. They have a family section and they have a professional section. They have a parent helpline. And you know what parent wouldn't like to be able to ring somebody up when their youngsters just walked out screaming, I'm never going to see you, I'm running away, I'm going to get on a train, I'm going to become homeless, I hate you, I hate you, I hate you. Yeah. You can pick up the phone to Young Minds and you'll have a trained counsellor there who can support you and work out a way that can help your youngster and consequently the family too. Okay, so that's one set of resource. The next one, I just want to mention this book. This is by Glaswegian Chris Williams, and it's the kind of CBT self-help Bible. But, you know, after these sessions, I get a lot of people coming to me and saying, look, I've got a real problem with my teenager at the moment, what shall I do? And I usually say, if you've got enough money, buy that book, because it is like your guide to what is going on and what you can do as a parent. It's full of really, really helpful chapters, which are workbooks, which you can work through from a CBT self-help point of view. And it is just really, it gives the journey for the parent about where they can go and where they can expect to go in the next 6 months and what they can helpfully do. So actually a really good one for us to read too, but actually that's a great one. You can, by the way, you can get that on Amazon as a second-hand copy really cheaply now, so nice one. Okay, so we talked about, first of all, engaging parents if we can. And I know I probably sound very idealistic, but a lot of people are really trying really hard to help their kids, and you know, there's some useful things for them. Next thing is we can possibly engage the youngster in their own problem by helping them to reduce the stressor. And how many people want to have stress in life? Nobody. So we do that through problem solving, which I'm sure you probably do already. But let's just sort of think about this from the CBT point of view. Basically, if you're a youngster with a mental health problem, life is really hard and you have no idea how to get yourself out of this difficulty, what way to go, how to do this. So with problem solving, in general practice, we're looking for very, very small, tiny things that that young person can do for themselves in their own domain so that they are successful. And that breeds autonomy, capacity, and we know it actually improves mood and changes your neurotransmitters. So the small thing may seem so small, it's quite ridiculous, but it's not, because actually what we tend to do is set the bar too high and say, oh, you've got to get this sorted out, you know, like stop drinking, for example. Well, actually, it's a really hard thing to do. So it's got to be really small little things. And in Zoe's case, if we look at her problem list, it's family arguments, school absences, mum's new partner, parental divorce. Well, the latter two, there's not much Zoe can do about that, to be honest. You know, this is the circus that she finds herself in, but she might be able to think and do something a little bit about family arguments. So you might not be able to see a slide very well. This is Zoe's problem solving sheet. And basically, based on a real case, GP working with Zoe, one consultation, it really didn't take very long. What's the number one problem? It's my mum. I feel really sad because we can't talk to each other anymore. Well, what's the way around that? Well, actually, we used to cook a meal. We used to cook tea together every now and again, and often we'd have a chat then. And so GP encouragement, why don't you have a go at that next week and just get back to me? You know, I'd like to see you in 3 weeks' time. And actually, this young lady did do this. And she, really, with the help of the GP, 3 minutes in consultation, she plucked up the courage and she did. A mum was like, oh, you really want to cook tea with me? That's brilliant. And they cooked tea, and she managed to come out with some of her problems and how difficult she was finding life, and mum engaged. It was wonderful. And she just really had not understood any of this. And mum actually went on to really, really think about her second family arrangements, what was going on at home and also school. And this was the turning point for Zoe in real life. Small things, but actually it were. And, you know, Zoe was on the CAMHS wait list. She didn't get through for 9 months. So she couldn't wait. And in the meanwhile, we'd managed to get this success. So that's brilliant. And then the last bits before we go through to questions and a bit of a break for you, a break from you, from me going on at you, is the next thing we want to do is build up a bit of psychosocial support for that youngster while they're waiting to be seen or as an alternative. And actually, it is the online resources. Now, you may have your own online resources, and I'd love you to put them in the chat box to share with people. That would be so fabulous. Thank you if you could do that. I'm just going to show you one or two of them. This is the there's this URL in there, and it's Students Against Depression site. This is our charities site, and it's written by young people for young people based on CBT, and it is for university students. However, you can take this down to kind of college students, 16. Why I put this one up is because it's quite unusual in that it has young people bloggers on it. And we know the evidence base is that actually young people really listen to other young people. And so we have trained up youngsters here, trained up in CBT, and they write, oh, in the morning I just couldn't move. I was so down on the floor. And then I realized I had to get into college for 9 o'clock. And then they go through a CBT way to do that. I just tell you a quick story about that. I had a GP who'd been to one of these sessions, and as it happened, the next consultation after this session was a mother saying, bringing in a youngster saying, he's really weird. He's spends all his time alone in his bedroom, playing on computer games. I think he's got schizophrenia. Do something, doctor. And actually, what the GP did was say to the youngster and mum, why don't you have a look at this website? And I'd like to see youngster by South in a week's time. The GP was thinking, is this normal? I, as a psychiatrist, was thinking, is this youngster psychotic? psychiatry thinking, eh? And the end result was youngster came back to see GP and said, thank you so much for showing me that site. You know what? I actually realized I'm normal, it's my mom who's not normal. And that was the GP kept an eye on this youngster who just took off actually from that point. So there you go. Okay, so online resources, you're going to have your own. Please do put them up on the chat to share with our friends and colleagues here. Then let's go on to some of the apps. So I've put up 2 sites, which are Scottish sites with links through to the different apps which are available. And there's quite a few apps which are around at the moment. I'm not going to, I'd love to go on to those URLs now, but I'm not going to because it's very difficult on Zoom to get that to work properly. So I am going to leave you to do that, but I'm sure you've kind of heard that, you know, apps are the latest thing with teenagers. They work, the youngsters engage with the app and the smartphone. These apps are there all the time with them. So if you have a bit of a crisis going on, you can refer to your app, which can help you there and then. They also have the helplines. So we need to move towards the apps. If you go on to both of those 2 sites, which are brilliant, you will see the different apps which are available for anxiety, depression, crisis, family support, etc. And really, this is the way ahead. The next set of URLs, again, are some fabulous resources, Scottish-based resources, which you can begin to look for local services which are around, which can begin to build up that the psychosocial support that the youngster needs to engage with. And there's phenomenal amount of services around. And we're not just talking mental health services or actually mental health charities. We're talking about small things which might actually engage the youngster in a greater and bigger life, which comes under mental health promotion. So just to show you the sort of things we're looking at from an evidence base, the services and organizations and people around we're looking for are the first, if we, hang on a minute, there we go. That's family, strong evidence base about support, family and mood. This is friends, strong evidence base about peer help if you have a mental illness. Exercise, very, very important. We need to get Zoe back into playing netball, as effective as an antidepressant in a teenager. This is dance, to remind us that girls and boys may dance instead of playing sports. This one is an important one to think about, is achievement. And again, this is just brilliant. You won't see it in the psychiatry textbook, but it's certainly there in the literature. And success breeds success. If we can get this youngster to feel involved in something, here we go, trophies, then actually that can improve mood. Education can improve mood. That some great work in general practice about that. And that's not necessarily a degree course or anything as highbrow as that. Just learning to do something you've always wanted to do is fantastic. And then music these are the sort of activities which we know if we can help the youngster get involved with, that is going to build their mental health as well as their psychosocial support. Okay, so I'm going to come back to that bit after our break. Okay, so I've gone on for quite a long time now. Are there any immediate questions anybody would like to ask from what I've presented? Does it look okay, not okay? Do you think you use it? What other stuff do you use? Anything immediate comes up for people? You can put it in chat or put a participant sign up. I got a question from what apps? Yeah, sorry, you need to go onto those URLs. So and that will take you through to the different apps. So what I'll do is I'll post up the URL sites onto the chat box when we go for a break, so that you could have a quick look at those. Hopefully that'll be okay. Any other sort of comments? I'm looking in chat at the moment. Okay, well, look, what I'll do is I will post up those URLs, particularly for the apps, into the chat, so that if you want to in this debate, you can have a look at them in your own time. I have 15:34, so if it's okay and you're not too tired from looking at the screen, could we get back please at 15:40? That's on my computer clock, so 5 minutes from now, and get a leg stretch, camera off, get away from the screen, and think of any questions which you might have, and write it up in the chat, and I'll see you in 5 minutes time. Yeah, thanks, Gillian. So we're recording again, and I'm going to just carry on going through some slides because there's quite a lot of resources to share with you without overwhelming you. And I do want us to have a bit of a question and answer session at the end. So if I continue, and just urge you to put any questions into the chat function, that'd be fantastic. Thank you. Here we go. Yeah, okay, so we talked about kind of really we're going to do what we can realistically in the time available, and some people may be able to take up these offers of help, some people may not, but there is a lot of stuff around. As ever, it's all about engagement. We can engage the youngster through having a person-centered approach, an account of what their problem could be, and we can look at helping to problem solve, to reduce the stressor. That's good psychiatry. And we can also begin to try and build the psychosocial support and get these youngsters looking outside to some of the fabulous resources and people who are around. So I'm now just going to take you through some additional resources for other conditions. You use the same approach, but there are some different specialist resources available to our young people and their families. And then we'll be touching on risk before we go into questions. So just to kind of engage again in we've got John, he's 16 years old. He's been referred to CAMHS for anxiety. He's not been seen. Well, he did get through to CAMHS actually, and he had online support. He did not like it. A lot of youngsters are saying that as well. With COVID, CAMHS has gone online. They do not like it, and he just is not going to go back. But his mother keeps on bringing him back to you. He has this right iliac fossa pain, which has been investigated. There are no findings, and he's beginning to get off school with it. This may be familiar to you or not. He is anxious about everything. God bless him, particularly with the COVID, extra pressures, his future. Will they go into lockdown again? He feels he could not bear it if they went into lockdown. His social media presence, how he looks like, he's querying his gender, money, finances, relationships, everything. So, we're kind of looking at a generalized anxiety disorder. So just to remind you again about the different classifications of anxiety. Anxiety is really difficult to diagnose. A lot of anxiety is underdiagnosed and does not get recognized or thought about. So just to remind you about the different types of anxiety, and again, it's all DSM-5 and it's a symptom count to get the proper diagnostics. However, there are different resources for anxiety because there's a different CBT approach. You're basically looking to try and find the stressor in your day's life and to be able to counteract from a cognitive and behavioral point of view the stressor which brings on the anxiety. So I've put up some anxiety resources which could be of help to you. You've got some fabulous information on NHS Inform Scot, and anxiety disorders in children is a good starting point and a great starting point for families. Then we get some apps, and again, you will get the slides with these app URLs. This is an interesting one from the University of Liverpool and Manchester, and it's a mood diary which takes you into CBT, probably for your older teenagers, but that's exactly what you need to do, is on a day-to-day basis catch when the anxiety comes up and what you're doing at that time. But it's very, very helpful, and again on smartphone, and can be useful. Fear Fighter is another very well-known one, which is Nice Endorse, which gives you an extra bit of confidence about it. Self-paced CBT for anxiety, available as an app on your smartphone. So there are there's stuff around. The problem, of course, is always, how do you know it's any good? How do you find it? And how do you engage the youngster in this? So, I would refer you back to thinking about some way of thinking the problem which the youngster engages with, and then also a bit of problem solving to help deal with the stressor and give confidence before you into some of these resources. Attention deficit, we can't go into today. I know it's going to be, you're going to be dealing with youngsters with attention deficit. Again, some good information on that URL. Just to note that, the evidence base is that actually before the referral was made for a diagnostic, that the parents should have gone to a parenting class. So that's an interesting one. I'd love to hear what your experiences are of that. But also just to kind of remind that actually there is a benefit of exercise for attention deficit. And so again, in terms of families who are engaged, regular exercise can be beneficial particularly whilst one is waiting on to get a diagnosis, which can be a very long time. Beat Eating Disorders is a UK-wide eating disorder service. I put this one up because they have a massive reputation. I've done a lot of work with youngsters in COVID. There's some really neat stuff online on that website about COVID and the impact on eating and food. It's wonderful. So if you've got that youngster who parents are saying we're really anxious about them getting too thin, they're not coming down for family meals, if you can get some engagement with that website, they're very helpful, and they've got a great support line. And then the last one I've just put down is the CAMHS website. I've been doing quite a lot of work with pediatric nurses who have found that website to be absolutely tremendous. Didn't know it existed. And if you get a chance to go on that URL, you will find all of the reputable, recognized NHS sites on there, plus the apps. So it's a big one, and it's a good one. The feedback I've had also from that is a bit overwhelming, too many sites on it. However, the other side of that is if you can get a youngster to save that as a favorite, you know what, they choose the one which is of interest to them, and you might not even know that it's actually alcohol or substances, which is the real problem they haven't told you about. So there's some real benefits about that. Right, so that's given you some more kind of resources. Again, just always remember that in the end, it's about how that youngster and their own family can look after that youngster and engage with their problem. And that you can do what you can do alongside them as well as you can. There is help available. Some of that stuff is fantastic, but it's not going to work for everybody. So let's get into risk. Now, of course, if we had far more time, we could have amazing breakout rooms on this. But today we're not going to. I'm just going to shoot us into some resources so that we get time for some questions. So anyway, let's think about our Zoe. She's actually, you've done some problem solving. She's kind of got back with her mum. Her mum's working in school. She's getting a much better school attendance now. Things have calmed down a bit in the family home, and her mood has improved. However, suddenly there she is. She's engaged with you, and she's back to see you, and she says she feels desperate. So what do you do? if we had more time, I'd be very interested in what you do and what resources you use, but also how you get the youngster to engage in using these resources. But let's just kind of go through some of the theory right now, and then we're going to go over to you for questions. So first of all, there's very little work done in general practice about mental health risk. It's all done for psychiatry. Of course, psychiatrists far more time to deal with any of this stuff, and a mental health team. So it's really, really tough. This, you'll see the slide here, if you could read it, is the best thing I found about the evidence base about who should get seen by the specialists who are at risk. And if you get to read it, you'll see that this is the bottom category of patients who have fleeting thoughts of suicide, fleeting thoughts which resolve. And basically, they're kind of saying the approach that we've advocated already. However, most people you see will kind of be up here, and they will not have fleeting thoughts. There'll be regular thoughts of suicide which do not change and do not go away. And if you look at in this column here, all of this is like specialist mental health assessment. So I'll leave that with you about what availability you have. But I think it's really important to know, obviously for your own purposes, in terms of if you can't get anybody to see the youngster in crisis, you document in notes and make sure it's very clear that you think the person should have been seen and the rationale behind it. So obviously that's one thing. But I think it's also very helpful for parents. You know, personally, if it was mine, I would be fighting the corner and absolutely insisting on a specialist assessment. And that's actually powered to the elbow of the youngster and their families. So I'll let you look at that in your own time. Next thing is safety planning. I don't know if you use this already, but it is a medical legal requirement. The medical legal unions see that you are the first point of contact, the RMO, and they don't expect you to be psychiatrists, but they do expect you to do safety planning. So basically, for those of you who are not aware of safety planning is somebody's in crisis, the world collapses and becomes very small, and you can't think more than beyond your nose. You can't think about the next week. It's really day by day, hour by hour. And safety planning is how you work with somebody to plan what they're going to be doing in the next few hours to keep them safe. So in safety planning, you are required to give out national telephone numbers. You are required to advise somebody not to drink alcohol, because most completed suicides are under the influence of alcohol. And you are required to work out a plan for that youngster and their family about what they're going to do. So it's kind of like, but you know, scheduling. 4 p.m. I'm going to ring up my Auntie Flo because I love her and she makes me feel good. 5 p.m. I'm going to take the dog for a walk. 6 p.m. I'm going to have my favorite supper. 7 p.m. I'm going to have a hot shower because that makes me feel good. 8 p.m. I'm going to listen to my favorite music, etc., etc. So this is quite obviously a tall order to do in a general practice consultation. I'm just putting up here a resource, and this is from our website, Students Against Depression. It's based on CBT, it's written by a psychologist, and the idea is that obviously you are involved in it, but it is that youngsters and their families' safety plan. I'm just give you a very quick story here. I work for the charity, the Charlie Waller Trust, and the Waller family, as we said, lost Charlie through suicide. And I was training some GPs, and the Waller family were there, and they stood up and said, please, 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 we understand the angst everybody has here, but could you say that please use safety planning? If we had known about safety planning as a family, we would have done anything to have kept our youngster, our young man, our son safe. So we urge you all, please, to look at this resource. So there we go. very, very popular, particularly with younger doctors and trainees, and practice nurses also like this a lot. I'll just go on for the next ones. You may or may not be using these resources. I'm very interested in any other resources you have and use. But we've got Breathing Space, which is a Scottish resource for people over the age of 16 who are feeling desperate, and very good reputation. So there they are, as well as, you know, the other suicide prevention charities. Now, Papyrus, the next link down, is the specialist suicide prevention charity for young people. So Samaritans are absolutely fab and brilliant, but Papyrus are the ones who are specialising more and get paid by the NHS to deal more with the young people. Go onto their website as a preventative measure before you have this consultation. Have a look at what they've got to offer. They also offer help to professionals as well. Extremely good reputation. They offer help to families and to that young person. So thankfully we have Papyrus. Now this Shout resource, which is at the bottom page, is a relatively new one, and this actually has come and been funded from the Prince William and Kate mental health charity, and it's a texting messaging support service. You know, I kind of looked at that and think, texting if you're desperate, but actually the evidence base around this is really, really good, and it's got some big names behind it as well, and obviously it's another way of engagement, which is everything we need in this situation. And then the other two things which you may or may not know about is the apps, which are about prevention. So Calm Harm is actually for the self-harming youngster, about ways to distract themselves from harming themselves, which can lead to a suicide attempt. And again, app, smartphone, fantastic, really good evidence base. And Safe Spot, again, really, really helpful, and written for young people. Get it on your phone, and in advance, or if you're feeling desperate, actually go towards coping plans, strategies, tools to help. And they also link through to local resources. Again, extremely good. So we do have some great resources, of course. Question is about getting a young person to use them, and their families to use them, and for us to be able to use them efficiently and readily in our consultations. So I am now nearly out of time as well. It's amazing, isn't it? I can take any questions though. Are there any questions anybody would like to put into chat? If if we haven't got enough time, put them into chat now and I will get back to you, or you can email me. But any questions at all, hands up, take mic off, put it into chat, anything. Just ask, take advantage of me while I'm here. I'm just going to put my email into the chat box.
Lots of positive feedback for you.
Oh, lovely, thanks. I'll look at it in a minute, thank you. Okay. Oh, great. So we're getting people saying thanks for the resources. I know, it's just, honestly, I mean, it's just when you find them and actually when you begin to use them and people use them and you see and make a difference in somebody's life, you know what it's like when actually you've really helped somebody. So hopefully that's of use. The resources look good. Yeah, I mean, people are working so hard on getting this digital stuff together for our youngsters because they do engage digitally. Any other questions anybody's got? I must keep to time or Gillian will tell me off. Won't you, Gillian? No, I know she will. Okay, so I've got maybe a question here.
One of the best sessions. Thank you so much. There you are.
Oh, thank you. That is so nice of you to say that. Thank you.
We will, of course, we will circulate today's slides with our feedback questionnaire that we'll have for you all. That will probably come into your inbox tomorrow. Or we can try and get it out. We can try and get the slides out to you this afternoon so that it's fresh in your mind, so that you can have a click through some of those URLs that Marianne's shared.
Okay, thank you, Gillian. I've got a question here, which is how do you work on Dr. Empathy when a young person who says they just can't cope? And you know, gosh, thank you for that question and the honesty there. That's brilliant. We've all been there, haven't we? With patients where we who can't cope and keep coming back and not being able to cope, and it's just incredibly difficult to keep that person-centered empathy going. And you know, what can I say? We all recognize that, first of all, and you know, it is only patient-centered practice using empathy, person-centered skills. The more you get to understand a young person's story, the more empathy you will have. There's no easy answer, but actually, you know, if we had a longer session, I actually sometimes have to regain my empathy by looking at URLs of young people actually speaking about the problems they're facing. So yeah, it's of course, but yeah, we have to keep going on with that. Yeah, I'm just looking for any other kind of questions I can deal with quickly. Well, thank you so much for your feedback. I'm really pleased, and I've put my email in the chat, but it's also will be on the PowerPoint. So, you know, seriously do get in touch, because anything we can do to help these youngsters and help them not to come through and see a psychiatrist like me is absolutely fantastic. And I know you're doing brilliant work. So, Gillian, is that it? Are we closing the session? Are you?
Yes.
Yes.
On behalf of everyone here, thank you so much, Marianne. That's been, as you can see from the comments received, so thank you for your time, and thank you to the Charlie Waller Foundation for sponsoring this afternoon's session. And yes, everyone, like I said, we will circulate the slides and the resources to you all, and keep an eye out for our feedback questionnaire as well. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, everyone. Have a good day.
Okay, bye-bye.